Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, in PG Island, Mexico, Spain, United Kingdom, Africa, as well as our brethren in Australia. And to all the living saints, 144,000 scattered throughout the whole world, good evening, and may the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our episode number 5 on the subject, the Bible calendar. And I would like to read a statement in Volume 6. It says here, Testimonies for the Church. Volume 6, page 19. The word it is written is the gospel we are to preach. So the word of truth, it is written, is the gospel we are to preach. So, and the Great Controversy, 595, it says, before accepting any doctrine or precept, we should demand the claim, thus saith the Lord, in its support. And hereunto us are, let's read again, on page 41. It says, even those who profess to be teachers of righteousness have forfeited their faith in the biblical reckoning of creation. God, having knowledge of the present deceptive denial of His holy word, has devised a prophetic blueprint in symbols of beasts, wings, ribs, horns, heads, crowns, etc., by which He points out in this prophetic panorama the facts with a force that should humiliate men and show them their utter ignorance and lack of wisdom. Then it says, according to biblical reckoning, the flood came more than 1,600 years after creation. So, The shepherds had called it biblical reckoning on account of the flood. Now, as we already stated, brothers and sisters, Bible time prophecy must be reckoned with biblical reckoning. And it is proven, for example, in answerer number 3, page 46, concerning the prophecy in Daniel chapter 7. It says that the same power is indeed symbolized by both beasts, is unmistakably seen from the fact that both blaspheme the same length of time, the former for a time and times and the dividing of time, Daniel 7 verse 25, and the latter for 40 and 2 months, Revelation 13 verse 5. The same period is identically stated in Revelation 11 verse 3 and is equivalently represented in Revelation 12 verse 14 as a time and times and half a time, which according to the rule of interpretation of Ezekiel chapter 4 verse 6 is equated time 1 year times 2 years and half a time, or dividing of time 1/2 year or half a year, in the aggregate equaling 3.5 years or 42 months or 1,260 days, 12 months to a year, and 30 days to a month, Bible reckoning. Track at answerer number 3, page 46 and page 47. So the shepherd's rod made it so plain that the biblical reckoning, there must be 12 months in 1 year and 30 days every month, by which there must be 360 days in 1 year. So, to repeat again, our basis must be Bible as explained by the shepherd's rod. Here in answerer number 5, on page 55, saying, the Bible and the books of the Spirit prophecy, being the sole source of the shepherd's rod message, therefore, when the rod is taught, the Bible and the Spirit of prophecy are taught. So the only way that you can rest assured that it is the genuine teaching of the Bible, you need to teach the Bible in the light of the shepherd's rod, according to our reading, brothers and sisters, or our explanation must be exclusively found in the golden bowl. So I would like to read again that reading in 2SR page 289, saying, find your explanation in the bowl, and you will have no trouble in knowing the truth or of avoiding the ever-ready trap of deception. Thus, the difficulty in knowing the difference between truth and error is eliminated. 2SR page 289. And in track number 11, page 12, it says, get your doctrine, brother, sister, only from the golden bowl. And be not like the waves of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. Be not carried about by the many winds of doctrine that are blowing wildly from every direction, to cause you to lose your way to the everlasting kingdom. Track number 11 on page 12. So that is the admonition given by the voice of inspiration. Remember, the Bible is very plain that the earth is circle. In Isaiah 40, verse 22, it says, it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth. So, the earth is a circle. And the very first one that discovered that the earth is round, we know that that is Galileo Galilei. Now, here in track number 5, on page 85, says, once men fought the astronomical findings of Galileo. They even forced him to recant his position that the earth was round. But their fighting the truth did not make the earth flat. Track number 5, page 85. So the earth is round. And I think one of the contemporary of that scientist, Galileo Galilei, is Kate Hunter. And in his thesis, he proved that the original or the earth rotate on its axis every year, 360 days. I would like to show to you Kate Hunter. It says, an ideal earth year of 360 days by Kate M. Hunter. 360 days, the ancient standard. But in the days of the Egyptian Empire, their astronomers, the scientists in the days of Egyptian Empire, they say that the rotation of the earth is 365 days. And that is the commencement of the change of the calendar. Let us read Modern Times and the Living Past. And Modern Times and the Living Past. And I would like to read to you Patriarchs and Prophets. 114. Now, in the Modern Times and the Living Past, page 34, it says, the Egyptians studied the heavens and attained a knowledge of astronomy. And one of their greatest achievements was their fixing the length of the year at 365 days. But the Bible called it falsely science so-called. Brothers and sisters. And it says, the Egyptian calendar was devised in 42-41 BC. By it, the year was divided into 12 months of 30 days each, leaving 5 holidays at the end of the year. So, there was a period of time by which the Egyptian calendar, brothers and sisters, following the calendar of the antediluvian world. Only 360 days every year. But at the time when their so-called astronomers declared that the earth rotates on its axis 365 days a year, what they did is that they did not add the 5 days on to the 12 months. They still continue that every month there must be only 30 days. But at the end of the last month, they have 5 days. 5 days holidays, by which the 5 days holidays were not included in their calendar, but the next year, the following calendar must begin after the 5 days holidays. And that is the reason why God's people in Egyptian bondage had lost sight of the antediluvian calendar. And it is necessary for God to re-establish the creation calendar, by which we are now going to study at this time. So it says here, brothers and sisters, the Egyptian calendar was devised in 40-41 BC. By it, the year was divided into 12 months of 30 days each, leaving 5 holidays at the end of the year. It was this calendar with slight changes that Julius Caesar adopted for the Roman people many centuries later. Caesar added the 5 holidays to various months, thus making them uneven in length, and provided that 1 year in 4 should have 366 days. Many centuries later, Pope Gregory XIII again corrected the calendar 1582 AD, and in the form in which he left it, it is in use now in nearly all civilized lands. And we know that the changes in 1582 AD, that was in the month of October, that October 4 and supposed to be the next following day must be October 5. Pope Gregory put it 15, October 15. So, that is how the calendar had been changed by Pope Gregory in October 1582. But the absolute fact is that the number of days in every year of the Gregorian calendar, 365 days every year, and leap year every fourth year, is only copied to the Egyptian calendar, copied by Julius Caesar. And we know that the calendar that had been introduced not by Julius Caesar, but it is Augustus Caesar, is called the Julian calendar in honor to Julius Caesar. But that Julian calendar was copied only from the Egyptian calendar. So, the statement recorded in track number 10, let's read again. Track number 10 on page 38. It says, though the nations of today do not follow the biblical monthly calendar. So if you will look at the historical event, the Egyptian calendar is even more or the Egyptian calendar, they still remain that every month there must be only 30 days. And there are 12 months in a year. But the only changes in the Egyptian calendar is that before they will begin the next calendar of the following year, there are 5 holidays. And it is not reckoned in their calendar. But the Julian and the Gregorian calendar, brothers and sisters, the 5 days was included in the 12 months calendar in a year. And that is why, according to the modern times and the living past, the month become uneven, unequal. And we know, brethren, that we need to stick to the Bible. The Bible declared the earth is circle. The earth is round. And circle, there must be only perfectly 360 degrees. And not only that, all the Bible prophecy recorded in the Bible was reckoned 12 months in a year and 30 days every month. According to the Bible as explained by the Sharper's Rod, right? So let us read again the statement. In answerer number 3, page 46. The last part saying, 12 months to a year and 30 days to a month, Bible reckoning. So, that is the statement, very plain. 12 months to a year and 30 days to a month, Bible reckoning. Answerer number 3, page 46. So that is the Bible reckoning. Also in track number 6. Track number 6. on page, I think, it says here, um, let me see this statement. That is, I think, 21, or in track number 6. The same statement, brothers and sisters, given by the shepherd's rod, that there must be 30, 20, and 21. It says, in each instance, the time reckoning by the biblical rule of 30 days to a month amounts to 1,260 days. So that's biblical rule. In answerer number 3, page 46, the term is Bible reckoning. But here it says the biblical rule. So that is biblical rule, brothers and sisters. And I would like to read to you and go back to track number 10. Patriarchs and Prophets, 114. Patriarchs and Prophets, page 114. These persons have lost the simplicity of faith. There should be a settled belief in the divine authority of God's holy word. The Bible is not to be tested by men's ideas of science. So that is very plain. Apostle Paul called it falsely science, so-called. 2 Timothy chapter 6, verse 20. Falsely science, so-called. The Bible is not to be tested by men's ideas of science. Human knowledge is an unreliable guide. Skeptics who read the Bible for the sake of cavilling may through an imperfect comprehension of either science or revelation, claim to find contradictions between them. But rightly understood, they are in perfect harmony. Moses wrote under the guidance of the Spirit of God, and a correct theory of geology will never claim discoveries that cannot be reconciled with his statements. All truth, whether in nature or in revelation, is consistent with itself in all its manifestations. So that is very plain here in Patriarchs and Prophets, page 114. So, the only record concerning geology, brothers and sisters, that is perfect, it must be found in the book of Moses. And the shepherd's rod plainly declared in answerer number 3 on page 10 and 11, it says, the Lord gave to Moses the sacred yearly calendar, which cannot be lost or miscalculated so long as the earth remains. Answerer number 3, page 10 and 11. the Lord gave to Moses the sacred yearly calendar, which cannot be lost or miscalculated so long as the earth remains. So the Bible calendar must be found in the writings of Moses. Brothers and sisters, according to the shepherd's rod, because it says the Lord God gave to Moses the sacred yearly calendar, and God guaranteed it that it can never be lost so long as the earth remains. Now, I would like to read in 11 Symbolic Code, number 4, page 6. 11 Symbolic Code, number 4, page 6. In the beginning, the evening and the morning were the first day. So that is found in the book of Moses, Genesis. In the beginning, the evening and the morning were the first day. There is a measurement of time, and God created it. The day, as you know, is composed of 24 hours, an hour being merely a shorter measurement of time. Since the earth can measure but 24 hours each time it turns on its axis, earth then has its only means of time measurement, its rotation on its axis and its circuit through its orbit. 11 Symbolic Code, number 4, page 6. Do not forget that the earth began to punctuate, to rotate on its axis, even before the sun were created. The sun were created in the 4th day. But the earth began to rotate on its axis on the very first day of creation. And the only measurement of the earth, according to the voice of inspiration, is, brothers and sisters, its rotation on its axis. And accordingly, since the earth is circle, in Isaiah 40, verse 22, and also proven with scientists, Christian scientists, brothers and sisters, I would like to say Christian, because his discovery is in perfect harmony with the Bible, that the earth is round. Galileo Galilei, and one of his contemporary also proved, Kent Hunter. Let us read again. According to Kent Hunter, it says, an ideal earth year of 3, only that portion. An ideal earth of 360 days by Kent M. Hunter. 360 days, the ancient standard. That is the ancient standard. 360 days. But it was changed in the time of the Egyptian Empire. If the observation, if the discovery of that scientist, the astronomers in the days of the Egyptian Empire is absolutely correct, then there is no need for God to reestablish the creation calendar in the days of Moses, because the calendar that they are using is the Egyptian calendar. And the statement in Answerer, let's read Answerer number 3, saying, Answerer number 3, page 10. It says here, thus we see, let's read Answerer number 3, page 10. Thus we see that His great and never-erring timepiece for earth, the earth's own invariable movements, fix the day and the year, whereas the moon's revolving round the earth makes the months. So the statement, invariable movements, meaning it cannot be changed. If in the very beginning, the movement of the earth revolved on its axis 360 days every year, then that movement is invariable. According to this statement, Answerer number 3, page 10. But I do fully believe that this scientists who changed God's calendar from 360 to 365, they were inspired by the spirit of Satan. I remember the statement here in Patriarchs and Prophets 113. It says, it is one of Satan's devices to lead the people to accept the fables of infidelity, for he can thus obscure the law of God, in itself very plain, and embolden men to rebel against the divine government. His efforts are especially directed against the fourth commandment, because it so clearly points to the living God, the maker of the heavens and the earth. But we know that accordingly, in order to preserve the fourth commandment, God absolutely guard the weekly cycle is never been touched, never been altered. So here in track number 10, on page 38, it says, though the nations of today do not follow the biblical monthly calendar, that in no wise alters the fact that the original weekly cycle has never been changed. And as it is entirely independent of both the solar and the lunar calendars, had God not preserved it intact throughout all the ages, the saints now in the times of restitution of all things would have great difficulty to restore it and to vindicate its integrity. The statement to restore it must be applied only to the biblical monthly calendar. What is the biblical monthly calendar? Only 30 days every month. Look at the Gregorian calendar. The February is 28. And every fourth year, it becomes 29. And there are months, which is 31. January, March, and July, August, October, December. Brothers and sisters, and it is the devil. In reality, according to our reading in Patriarchs and Prophets 113, the main target of the devil is the fourth commandment. But God absolutely guarded the weekly cycle. And here in track number 10, on page 37, and also page 35, let us read the statement on page 35. There is no doubt in the minds of any that the Jewish and apostolic churches in Christ's time were keeping the right Sabbath day, and that the zeal which the Roman Emperor Constantine had for the Christian faith would have absolutely forbidden him to abolish the Christian calendar and to establish another which would annihilate both the Sabbath of creation and their memorial of the resurrection. But it is pointing to the weekly cycle. On page 37, it says, this historical record plainly shows that the weekly period of 7 days has continued unbroken from time immemorial, that Rome did not abolish the Christian week, but the Romans, and that the one which took its place was the same as the Jewish or the Christian. So that historical event, brothers and sisters, is plainly telling us, according to the Shepherd's Rod, that God preserved it intact. The weekly cycle never been changed, never been altered. From the very first week of creation, from time immemorial, with unbroken line, continued. And the principal reason that God preserved it intact, first, that the keeping of the weekly Sabbath, brothers and sisters, will be observed by all God's people, unbroken line. And in the book of Daniel, it is called the daily, according to the Shepherd's Rod, which is pointing to, although the term daily does not refer alone to the fourth commandment, but in the other sense, it is also referring to the fourth commandment, meaning continual, forever. It says here in 2SR 132, the Sabbath doctrine is the only Bible truth in the Christian dispensation that has to do with a definite day. Hence it is called daily. The word daily in the Hebrew by Isaac Lezer is rendered continual. Thus it clearly bears the evidence that the Sabbath, daily doctrine, is a continual and everlasting truth. So it is a continual and everlasting truth. And God preserved it intact, in unbroken line, so that God's people can rest assured that the day by which they are resting is the exact day by which God commanded in the fourth commandment, in the Decalogue, in Exodus chapter 20. But the absolute fact is that the other reason why God preserved it intact throughout the ages, never been altered, never been destroyed, according to the Shepherd's Rod, in tract number 10, page 38, so that at the time of the restitution of all things, the saints, I do fully believe the saints mentioned there are pertaining to the saints that will no longer to taste death, that the saints would have found no difficulty in restoring it to vindicate its integrity. Although there is no in the side of our Almighty God, it is very easy to restore the Bible calendar. Even though the record, maybe the weekly cycle, the record had been lost. But the thing is that we as human beings, it will be difficult for us to understand, brothers and sisters, without the absolute record of the weekly cycle by which it has never been changed. Or in other words, for example, when Pope Gregory XIII changed the calendar in 1582, although I don't know who have that record, in October 4, that is, I think that 1582 AD in Gregorian. October 4, that is, I think, Thursday. And the changes is that on Friday, instead, it should be October 5, Pope Gregory made it October 15. So it is the date that had been changed, but the day is still Friday. The weekly cycle was not changed. If Pope Gregory changed in this way, for example, October 4, 1582 AD, Thursday, and then the next day, instead of October 5, it will October 15, and he will put it Sunday, then the weekly cycle had been changed. But never been changed. The following day is still Friday. So the thing that had been changed is only the date. Instead of October 5, it became October 15. Now, let us continue to our study, brothers and sisters. Since the Shepherd's Rod already declared that the sacred yearly calendar was given by God to Moses, in this study, brothers and sisters, all the information, I think, must be found in the writing of Moses as well as the very year by which Jesus Christ was crucified. Because the shepherd's rod, as well as the great controversy, made it so plain. The record is very plain, right? In the great controversy, I do not know if in the folio there is diagram, brothers and sisters. Jesus Christ was crucified in AD 31 or 31 AD. So, that would be our first clue. The crucifixion of Jesus Christ. He was crucified in the year 31 AD. Can you find that in a statement? Because here it is only a diagram. And in page 300, it says 327. In the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And in AD 31, so we have now the absolute proof that Jesus Christ was crucified in AD 31. 3.5 years after his baptism, our Lord was crucified. I do not know if we have that diagram. That's why it's really a very important subject, but I do not know if it could be able to produce a diagram, brothers and sisters. That in this study, we will prove to you that what the Bible declared in the shepherd's rod, as well as the spur prophecy, as well as the record anciently, that the Bible calendar, there would be only 360 days every year. Now, before going to the occurrence in the days of Jesus Christ, let us go first to the flood. Now, let us read the Bible. 2SR rather. And can you, I would like to prepare this number 20. This matter, number 20. Now let us read 2SR. $254. Flood coincides with the Passover and crucifixion. Flood coincides with the Passover and crucifixion. Now, let us read the statement. Our God commanded Noah with his family, beasts, fowls, and creeping things, to enter in the ark on preparation day, Friday. In the selfsame day entered Noah as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in as the Sabbath drew on, being the 10th day of the 2nd month. Genesis 7 verse 13 and 16. Now, the statement is very plain. Noah entered into the ark Friday, and that is the 10th day of the 2nd month. Therefore, that is May 10th. Now, brothers and sisters, I would like to emphasize that the Bible calendar had only 7 patterns. Hope that I could be able to explain it in a more comprehensible manner. Why? Why is it that the Bible calendar has only 7 patterns? Because there are only 7 days in 1 week. So, let us show the 7 patterns of Bible calendar. And of course, the Bible calendar commences on the month of April. That is the Bible calendar, right? Began on April 1. Whereas the Gregorian calendar began on January 1. The arrangement of the month, brothers and sisters, we know that because of the number of days in every year, it was destroyed by the exceeding great horn. The only thing that never been destroyed is the weekly cycle. It always go back to the same day because it was preserved by God. Now, this is the 7 patterns of Bible calendar. Pattern number 1, April 1, fall on Wednesday. And how do we know that pattern number 1 fall on Wednesday, April 1? Because of the shepherd's rod. Now, let us read answerer number 3. Let me read to you. Answerer number 3, page 11, it says, Thus was the Lord, answerer number 3, page 11, Thus was the Lord re-establishing the creation calendar, reaffirming that the year begins on the day of the vernal equinox, on which spring, the first season of the year, commences, and on which the sun and the moon were created, the 4th day from the beginning of creation. The only point in time at which, in the very nature of things, the year could begin. So what is the 4th day of creation? So that is Wednesday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So the creation calendar begin on Wednesday. So that is pattern number 1. April 1 fall on Wednesday. Pattern number 2, April 1 falls on Saturday. Pattern number 3, April 1 falls on Tuesday. Pattern number 4, April 1 falls on Friday. Pattern number 5, April 1 falls on Monday. Pattern number 6, April 1 falls on Thursday. And pattern number 7, April 1 falls on Sunday. So, that is the 7 patterns of the Bible calendar. And we already read in the Great Controversy, 327, by which the very year by which Jesus Christ was crucified is 31 AD. And the Shepherd's Rod made it so plain that it is on the 16th month of April. So let us read track number 3. Track number 3, page 57. It says, the fact having been established, see illustration on page 55. The 3.5 years of Christ's ministry terminated on the 16th day of the first month. The first month is April. So Jesus Christ was crucified on April 16. And we know that that was Friday, when Jesus Christ was crucified. Then counting 3.5 years, follow the illustration on page 55, we find that his baptism took place on the 16th day of the 7th month. Which was in the week of Tabernacles, and the celebration of which was the end of the agricultural year, the close of the harvest. Leviticus 23, verse 39. So from Christ's baptism to his crucifixion, exactly 3.5 years. And that is 1,260 days. If the Bible calendar, 365 days every year, then the 3.5 years would not be 1,260. 365 times 3, that is 1,095. Then 365 divided by 2, 182. 182 plus what? So that would be 1,277 days. But the Bible is very plain. From Christ's baptism to his crucifixion, that is exactly 3.5 years, exactly 42 months, exactly 1,260 days. And that is the first clue. Because by establishing baptism to crucifixion, you can go forward, you can go backward, using the weekly cycle, using 12 months every year, 30 days every month, 360 days every year. All the history from creation, all the history from crucifixion, and all the prophecy, it is easy to discern, brothers and sisters. Although you need time, brothers and sisters, to make such a calculation, but thank the Lord. we will be thankful to our Almighty God. Because what God is saying is really true. The statement in 2SR 229. Let us read again the statement. God's servants shall have no time or desire for the cares of this world, for there is a city prepared for them whose builder and maker is God. As we have just enough time to get ready for translation, we must not let the enemy steal our precious moments. Because the work is so broad, its expansion so vast, and its importance so great, God has inspired modern science to invent and build speedy equipment to quickly finish His work. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Daniel 12, verse 4 and 10. And also the statement in White House Recruiter, page 36. So, White House Recruiter, page 36. It says, because time and the gospel at their climactic hour, and the work is consequently of transcendent scope, expansion, and importance, yet of exceeding short duration, God has inspired men to invent and build time and labor-saving, wonder-working, earth-mastering tools and machinery of all kinds, marvels which would have staggered the imagination and beggared the credulity of former generation, notwithstanding the centuries aforehand. The high and lofty one that inhabit eternity, Isaiah 57 verse 15 declared, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Daniel 12 verse 4. The statement, build time. Brothers and sisters, doesn't mean that modern science, they are the one who build the time. But this statement in White House Recruiter, page 36, and also 2SR 229, we fully believe that that is absolutely real. Because in the modern science, through internet, we do not know who established that timeanddate.com. Timeanddate.com. Because of that invention in the modern science, brothers and sisters, in which the weekly cycle never been broken, you can easily calculate from one event to the other because of that timeanddate.com. And it is the shepherd's rod who declared it, that it is God who inspired. I remember I think that is also the fulfillment, that prediction of Isaiah. Let me see. Verse 13 in Isaiah 47. Isaiah 47 verse 13. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. So it points out to the modern science that had been inspired by God, brothers and sisters, to help God's people. Now, let us gradually show to you the accuracy of the scriptures, the shepherd's rod, as well as that statement in the shepherd's rod in 2SR 229, as well as the statement in White House Recruiter, page 36, that God inspired the modern science, not the scientists by which they inspired wicked devices. I remember that statement is it in 1SR? Wicked devices. And those scientists that inspired wicked devices, for sure, they were under the inspiration of Satan. It says in page 225 in 1SR, while the world is making rapid progress in human wisdom and wicked devices. For example, those who invented those weapons of war, that is wicked devices. And it is Satan who inspired those scientists. Although the gadget that is employed by God to use in spreading the gospel, but sometimes also Satan can divert it to use in evil ways. For example, cell phone, and with many others, brothers and sisters. Now let us go back again to our reading, brothers and sisters. Now the shepherds were declared clearly, brethren, that when Noah entered into the ark, that is May 10, Friday, according to 2SR, the one we read. Let's go back again. 2SR, page 200. 2SR, page 254. Our God commanded Noah with his family, beasts, fowls, and creeping things to enter into the ark on preparation day, Friday. In the selfsame day entered Noah as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in as the Sabbath drew on, being the 10th day of the second month. So that is May 10th, Friday. Brothers and sisters, so we have already the clue given by the voice of inspiration. And let me show it to you. So, that is the flood. Brothers and sisters, May 10th, Friday. Therefore, May 1 must be Wednesday. So that is the time when Noah entered into the ark, May 10, Friday. So we can guarantee that that statement, that illustration is perfect because the shepherd's rod declared clearly, but it was quoted in the Bible in Genesis chapter 7. The quotation is found in the Bible. Genesis 7 verse 13. and verse 16. Now let us read the Bible. Genesis chapter 7, verse 13. In the selfsame day entered Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them into the ark. So, that is Genesis chapter 7, verse 13, brothers and sisters. Now, in verse 11, it says, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, it says, the 17th day of the month, this same day, were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. So, since from the time Noah entered to the ark, there were 7 days, brothers and sisters, that passed before the rain poured out, and the rain began to pour out on the 17th day, May 17. So Bithihotep plainly declared, verse 13, it must be May 10. Because 17 minus 7 equals 10. So the statement in 2SR 254, it says, Noah entered into the ark on May 10, and it was Friday. Now, in what way that Bithihotep rest assured that the day Noah entered into the ark, it was Friday. There was no record in the Bible that it was Friday. Brothers and sisters, the only record in the Bible that is May 10. Although May 10 is not declared, but only by analysis, because the rain began to pour out on May 17, and from the time Noah entered into the ark, there are 7 days that passed before the rain began to pour out. So, 17 minus 7 equals 10. Therefore, Noah entered into the ark on May 10, on the 2nd month. But the shepherd's rod plainly declared here that May 10, when Noah entered into the ark, that was Friday. And for sure, 100%, the statement must be absolutely perfect. Now here in 2SR 254, it says, flood coincides with the Passover and crucifixion. So, this subject is called providential coincidences. Because the flood coincides with the Passover and crucifixion. Now let us read the entire paragraph. Our God commanded Noah with his family, beasts, fowls, and creeping things to enter in the ark on preparation day, Friday. In the self-same day entered Noah, as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in, as the Sabbath drew on, being the 10th day of the 2nd month. 7 days later, or at the beginning of the following Sabbath, so we need to study first, when does the Sabbath begins? It begins on sunset on Friday. Brothers and sisters, so that is the beginning of the Sabbath. On the sunset on Friday. So, the rain began to pour out on May 17, and that was Friday, but sunset, the beginning of the Sabbath. Now, let us continue reading, and it says, 7 days later, or at the beginning of the following Sabbath, being the 10th day of the month, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened, and it rained upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. The rain ceased on the 27th day of the 3rd month, and the 4th day of the week, Wednesday at sunset. So, it says 3rd month, so that is June 27, and it says Wednesday. Now, let us try to locate that statement, brothers and sisters. Slide number 42, slide number 1. I would like to show. So, these 40 days. So that we could, can we enlarge that one? These first 2 months. To elaborate the statement in TUSR page 254. So that is the statement, brothers and sisters, as recorded in the Bible. From sunset, May 17, up to June 27, and B.T. Hotep says that was Wednesday. So, exactly, May has only 30 days. And according to the Shepherd's Rod, brothers and sisters, from May 17, the remaining days to complete there will be 13 days, because that is 17. Remaining 13 days plus 27. 27 plus 13, that is 40 days. 40 days and 40 nights. So the rain ceased at sunset on Wednesday, June 27. The rain began to pour out sunset on May 17, the beginning of the Sabbath. Noah entered into the ark on May 10 at sunset as the Sabbath drew on. So, The record, brothers and sisters, in the Bible, as explained by the shepherd's rod, is absolutely accurate. And I would like to read to you to shorten our study. Let us read a statement here in 2SR page 248. Let us read the statement. Therefore, from the day the rain started to the day the ark rested, not on the ground but from drifting, was exactly 5 months. You see, exactly 5 months. The same is recorded in verse 3. And the waters returned from off the earth continually, and after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated. This fact proves that the antediluvian monthly calendar consisted of 30 days to a month. 5 times 30 equals 150 days. So, you see, brothers and sisters, the antediluvian calendar, that is the creation calendar. Of course, when God restored the calendar in the days of Moses, the term is no longer antediluvian, but it is called the Mosaic calendar. But that Mosaic calendar is the antediluvian calendar, the creation calendar. Brothers and sisters, because we know that the church is divided only into 3 periods: antediluvian, post-diluvian, and Christian era. According to track number 2, right? On page 13. But the creation calendar, according to the shepherd's rod, they called it as the antediluvian calendar. Now, let us go to the summarization. It says here, the following, still 248 in 2SR. The following is a summary and a grand total of days. 40 while raining, 110 to the time they began to subside, 164 days for the waters to recede in the bowels of the earth, and 56 for the earth to dry, making a total of 370 days, and 7 before the flood had started, reaching a grand total of 377 days, 12 months and 17 days in all, 30 days to the month. So 360 plus 17, 12 months and 17 days in all. So the record on account of the flood, it is exactly 1 year and 17 days. And through the account of the flood, we can rest assured, brothers and sisters, that every month consists only 30 days. And every year consists only 12 months. Here, we could prove the statement in answerer number 3, page 10 and 11, saying, the Lord God gave to Moses the sacred yearly calendar. Remember, brothers and sisters, there was no written record in the antediluvian world. And not until in the days of of Noah. And I would like to show to you here in slide number 4, in number 42, the wonders, brothers and sisters, in it is, you cannot read the background. So how could we be able to read that? Even though you see grand total of, you cannot read the word itself. Now, hoping that you could be able to, if you could see, brothers and sisters, although the way they place it, it's not good. So that is the grand total. 7 days before the flood, from the time Noah entered to the ark, May 10, and then 40 days while remaining. 40 days while raining, not remaining. Raining. 40 days while raining. That is rain. Then 110 days to the time they began to subside. 164 days for the waters to recede in the bowels of the earth. 56 days for the earth to dry. And it says 377 days in all. That is recorded in 2SR 248. 377 days. And number 3 is the number of God, Trinity. And 7 indicates completeness. And look at here. And there is really wonder. Grand total of the days. May 10, May 17, June 27, October 17, January 1, April 1, and May 27. If you will add all of them, that is 100. Indicating that the record of the flood is 100% true. Now, and I would like to read to you the statement in, I think. So let's go back to 2SR page 200. 254. So let's read again the statement. Flood coincides with the Passover and crucifixion. And let us prepare number 20. So it says here, our God commanded Noah with his family, beasts, fowls, and creeping things to enter in the ark on preparation day, Friday. In the self-same day entered Noah, as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in as the Sabbath drew on. being the 10th day of the second month. Genesis 7 verse 13 and 16. 7 days later, or at the beginning of the following Sabbath, being the 17th day of the month, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened, and it rained upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. The rain ceased on the 27th day of the third month, and the 4th day of the week, Wednesday at sunset. There is a remarkable coincidence between the flood and the Passover week, also in connection with the crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension of Christ. Therefore, this divine providence is worthy of our earnest consideration. The Israelites were commanded to take the Passover lamb apart from the flock on the 10th day of the first month, and were to kill it on the 14th day of the same month at even. Exodus chapter 12 verse 3 and 6. As Christ was crucified, buried, and resurrected within the Passover week, the weekly cycle and the monthly calendar coincide as follows. The 10th day in which the lamb was to be taken from the flock fell on the 7th day Sabbath that year. So, the statement says, fell on the 7th Sabbath, on the 7th day Sabbath that year. Brothers and sisters, that is pattern number 6, right? Pattern number 6. Or, that is the very year by which Jesus Christ was crucified. Now let us read again. It says, as Christ was crucified, buried, and resurrected within the Passover week, the weekly cycle and the monthly calendar coincide as follows. The 10th day in which the lamb was to be taken from the flock fell on the 7th day Sabbath that year, which coincided with the day of the week and the month of Noah's first day on confinement in the ark. Although it is little difficult, but we will study it more and more. Impossible if we could be able to prepare a diagram, brothers and sisters. And I think this portion need really an illustration so that everybody could be able to grasp the true meaning of this very important subject. Now, it says here, brothers and sisters, that let us, I would like to show to you number 20. This is the very year when Jesus Christ was crucified. April 16, Friday, 31 AD. And the Shepherd's Rod says that on that year, April 10 fall on Saturday. Right? So the only thing that coincides with the flood is the date and not the day. Because the 10th day on the flood, that is Friday. But the 10th day, when Jesus Christ, on the year when Jesus Christ was crucified, the 10th day of that April fall on Saturday. Because if the 10th day on that year fall on Friday, Therefore, Jesus Christ was crucified on Thursday. But Jesus Christ was not crucified on Thursday. He was crucified on Friday. So, April 10, on 31 AD, that is Saturday, seventh-day Sabbath, according to the Shepherd's Rod. Now, let us read again the statement. It says, as Christ was crucified, buried, and resurrected within the Passover week, the weekly cycle and the monthly calendar coincides as follows. The 10th day in which the lamb was to be taken from the flock fell on the seventh-day Sabbath that year, which coincided with the day of the week and the month of Noah's first day of confinement in the ark. In the end of the 14th day of the month, after Christ had observed the feast of the Passover lamb, he was taken before the priest, died on Friday, the 16th day of the month. So that was April 16 that Jesus Christ died, was buried at the commencement of the 17th, which is Sabbath sunset. So Jesus Christ was buried at the commencement of the 17th, which is Sabbath, which coincide with the commencement of the flood, and was resurrected on the 18th day, Sunday. As he ascended on high 40 days afterwards, it fell on Thursday, the 27th day of the second month, being the same day of the week as that which followed the 40 days of rain. Our previous explanation showed that the day following the 40 days of rain depicted in type the end of the world being followed with the departure of the saints from the earth. Now, this is a very important prophecy, brothers and sisters, by providential coincidences. Now, let us go back again to that providential coincidences so that we could understand. The 40th day, so we have no, I think it is lacking. We have no May, pattern number 6. Can we add pattern number 6? May. Could it be inserted? May pattern number 6. Of course, pattern number 6 May 1 would begin on Saturday. So, because it's easy to explain if we have the calendar. Now, let us distinctly separate what are those things that coincides with the flood. To repeat, the only thing that coincides with the flood, the crucifixion of Jesus, is Friday. And the commencement when the rain began to pour out, it was also Sunset Friday. Or in other words, the only thing that coincides with the flood in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ is when Jesus Christ was buried. Jesus Christ was buried at 6 p.m. Friday. The flood commenced, or the rain began to pour out 6 p.m. Friday. But not the date. Because the date when the rain began to pour out, that is 17th. But the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, that is 16th. Not the date. Only the hour and the day. the hour by which Jesus Christ was buried, that is 6 p.m., the rain began to pour out 6 p.m., and Jesus Christ was buried on Friday, the rain began to pour out on Friday. But the date, the one is earlier than the other. Because the date when Jesus Christ was crucified, that is 16th. The commencement of the flood, that is 17th. Both the date and the month is, the one is earlier than the other. Because the crucifixion is April, the flood is May. The crucifixion is 16th, the rain began to pour out 17th. So this statement in 2SR 255, I would like to read to you. It says, the Passover lamb being separated from the flock on the 10th day coincides with the separation of the righteous from the wicked in the antediluvian world. So, what coincides? The statement, the righteous mentioned here is the family of Noah when they entered into the ark. So the one that coincides is only the date, 10th day. Because Noah and his family entered into the ark on the 10th day. And the Passover lamb had been separated on 31 AD. The 10th day fall on Saturday. But the 10th day on the time when Noah and his family entered to the ark, that is Friday. The one is earlier than the other. The other is Friday, the other is Saturday. So, the coincidence, there is a coincidence, but there is also a point by which the one is earlier than the other. Now, let us read again the statement here in 2SR 255. The Passover lamb being separated from the flock on the 10th day coincides with the separation of the righteous from the wicked in the antediluvian world. Or in other words, the Passover lamb separated on the 10th day, and Noah and his family entered into the ark on the 10th day. But the 10th day, by which the Passover lamb being separated, that is April, but the 10th day when Noah and his family entered into the ark, that is May. The one is earlier than the other. The 10th day, by which the Passover lamb being separated on 31 AD, that was Saturday. But the 10th day when Noah and his family entered into the ark, that was Friday. The one is earlier than the other. Then it says, the day of Christ's burial coincides with the day of the commencement of the flood. So, what coincides with Christ's burial and the commencement of the flood? Only the hour and the day, but not the dates. Hoping, brother, that you will not be confused in this subject, but we will review it in our next episode. And hoping that I could provide some illustrations. So to repeat again, Christ's burial occurred on 6 p.m. Coincides when the rain began to pour out. That was also 6 p.m. Christ's burial occurred on Friday. Coincides with when the rain began to pour out in the days of Noah. That was also Friday. But the dates, the one is earlier than the other. Christ's burial occurred on April 16. But the rain began to pour out on May 17. So both month and dates, the one is earlier. For example, April. Christ's burial is April. The rain began to pour out May. So Christ's burial is earlier than the flood because the flood occurred on May. Christ's burial 16. The rain began to pour out 17. So the same with the date. The one is earlier than the other. So it is only the hour and the day, but not the dates and the month. And then it says, the day of Christ's burial coincides with the day of the commencement of the flood, also with the commencement of the plagues, and his ascension with the day after the rain ceased, also with the end of the world, and the translation of the saints. These coincidences are perfect with the day of the week and of the month. But the one is a month earlier in the season than the other. The Passover being the first month, and the flood in the second. It has been explained that the Passover is a type of the close of provision for the church, and the closing of the ark, a type of the closing of provision for the world. Therefore, there are 30 typical days between one close of provision and the other. If we were given light on how to decipher these typical 30 days, it seems it would reveal the exact number of years from the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9 Passover to the final close of provision. And he says, this fact perhaps will not be made known until after the work of the gospel has closed. But the work of the gospel mentioned here is not the proclamation, brothers and sisters, but in reality, it is pointing to the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. And we'll prove to you that later. Now, so let us now go back to the statement given by the Shepherd's Rod Publications. So it says, the one is earlier than the other. Now let us go back to the chart. Brothers and sisters. So this is the year by which Jesus Christ was crucified. 31 AD. Great controversy, 327. April 16, Friday. Track number 3, right? What page is that? In track number 3, it says on the 16th of the first month. Page 57. Track number 3, page 57. And also 2SR 254. So, if you will compare this calendar, 31 AD, to the calendar in the days of the flood, to repeat again, the only thing that coincides with the burial of Jesus Christ and the commencement when the rain began to pour out is only the time and the day, not the days. Because the date is earlier than the other, not the months. Because the months, the one is earlier than the other. So the burial of Jesus Christ is on the first month. But the flood is on the second month. So, the one is earlier than the other, brothers and sisters. And the date, the burial of Jesus Christ is on the 16th. But the flood, or when the rain began to pour out, that is 17th. So the one is earlier than the other. So concerning the crucifixion, or the burial of Jesus Christ, both the month and the date, the year by which Jesus Christ was buried is earlier than in the days by which the rain began to pour out. And the Shepherd's Rod says that illustration is pointing to the close of provision for the church and the closing of the provision for the world. So, these coincidences is very important. Now, if you will look at, brothers and sisters, the statement that I would like to read. Again, that statement in 2SR 255, saying, these coincidences are perfect with the day of the week and of the month. So, what is perfect? The day of the week and of the month. 2SR 255. So, if we'll be saying that the day is perfect, the perfect pattern that coincides this pattern, pattern number 6, is pattern number 3. Both of them began April 1 on Thursday, and also that one, May 1, began also on Thursday. So it is perfect. And the pattern that perfectly coincides with the flood is pattern number 1. Pattern number 5 coincides with pattern number 1. May 1 commenced on Wednesday, and April 1 on pattern number 1 commenced also on Wednesday. So do not forget that, brothers and sisters. The pattern which is exactly, perfectly coincides with another pattern. Now, for example, I would like to read to you here in answerer number 3. On page 13. This chart enables us to see that just as one solar season matches another, the vernal equinox matches the autumnal equinox, and the summer solstice, the winter solstice. In like fashion, the sacred feast of one season match the sacred feast of another season. The 10th day of the first month, the separation of the unblemished lamb from the flock, Exodus chapter 12, verse 3, corresponding to the 10th day of the 7th month, the work of atonement, the separation of the righteous from the unrighteous, signifying in both events a day of judgment, a day of separating the holy from the unholy. The 16th of the first month, the day Christ was crucified, corresponding to the 16th day of the 7th month, the day he was baptized, showing that his watery grave foreshadowed his grave in the tomb. The 18th day of the first month, the resurrection, corresponding to the 18th day of the 7th month, the first day of the wilderness temptation. His 40 days of victorious ministry to his disciples, corresponding to his 40 days of victorious conflict with Satan, and his disciples preaching the gospel after the Pentecost, corresponding to his preaching the gospel after the wilderness temptation. Answerer number 3, page 13. That paragraph, brothers and sisters, there are a lot of information by which if you could be able to decipher all those um, matching type, one season matches another season, and one holy feast matches to another holy feast, according to the shepherd's rod. Now let us go back to our um, subject concerning the Bible calendar. As we have already declared, brothers and sisters, that accordingly, it is employed by God, that God Himself, through His Spirit, inspired the modern science to invent, and more particularly, to help build the time, according to White House Recruiter, page 36. And that modern science, brothers and sisters, is only concretely establishing the absolute fact that the weekly cycle never been broken. Or in other words, while Satan is inspiring scientists to destroy the Bible calendar, saying 365 days every year and 366 days every leap year, by which it is the Roman, or through the instrumentality of the Roman Empire, anciently through the Egyptian Empire. But our Almighty God at the same time also inspired modern science to build this very important subject. And through that modern science that perfectly coincides with the Bible and the writings of the shepherd's rod, brothers and sisters, it was employed by God to make more easier how to locate one event to another event, applying the Bible reckoning biblical rule, 30 days to a month and 360 days every year. And through that information, God places it in our hands graciously, brothers and sisters, so that the Bible calendar will be perfectly restored. The reason that God preserved it intact, the weekly cycle, because it is the purpose of God that the weekly Sabbath will be observed by His people with unbroken line. But concerning the Holy Feast, historically, there are periods of time by which the people of God no longer observe the Holy Feast. And I think as far as the history is thus concerned, there are two prominent events by which God's people no longer observe the Holy Feast. That was during Egyptian bondage within 215 years, and also during the Babylonian captivity. So we have that historical event, brothers and sisters. And of course, that historical event is also picturing with unmistakable evidence as stated in 1 SR 226, in the antitype. That there was a period of time by which God's people no longer observed the holy feast after all the apostle died, and that is more particularly during the Dark Ages. And that is Babylonian captivity, antitypical Babylonian captivity. But for sure, brothers and sisters, the Sabbath keepers typifying being in Egyptian bondage. The same with ancient Israel during Egyptian bondage. And the mere fact that God did not restore the Bible calendar not until they went out of Egypt, it seems that God do not require them to observe the holy feast during that period of time, by which in reality they cannot observe it while they were still in Egypt. And since we are studying the prophecy by which the Shepherd's Rod says that the perfect fulfillment of that predicted event, Israel went out of Egypt. Brothers and sisters, still in the future, in the days of B'Tehodet. So one of the prominent events that perfectly manifests in your life that you are already abandoned Egypt is the Holy Feast. Because you cannot observe the Holy Feast while you are in Egypt. Therefore, if you observe the Holy Feast, an indication that you are no longer in Egyptian bondage. And since God declared in answerer number 3 on page 9 and 10, saying, "Does the all-knowing one, he who created the heavenly bodies, and knows the very moment he set them in motion, to govern the day, the month, and the year, decreed that the holy feast be observed in the very month and on the very day on which they were first ordained." And the only way that we could observe the holy feast on the very day and on the very month by which it was first ordained is by restoring the creation calendar, as once the Lord did in the days of Moses. Saying in page 11, "Thus was the Lord re-establishing the creation calendar." And the mere fact, brothers and sisters, that we are now on the very day by which the creation calendar was restored indicates clearly that we are now in the judgment for the living. Here in 1 TG number 28, page 15, it says, "The judgment for the living, the day in which all things are to be restored." Mark chapter 9 verse 12, 1 TG 28:15. The judgment for the living, the day in which all things are to be restored. And we know that it is through the channel of antitypical Elijah the Tishbite that all things will be restored. Here in the General Conference Special, page 19 and page 20, in doing all this, he sets in motion the power that is to restore all things. Hence Christ's positive declaration, "Elijah truly shall first come and restore all things." Matthew 17 verse 11. "Inevitably then, without his message, we would die in our ignorance, in our sins, never live to see the restoration completed. So the restoration will be completed at the time when God will send antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. So if you will not accept his message, then you will never live to see the restoration completed according to that reading. Now, our foundation on this Bible creation calendar is the Bible itself. And it is pertaining to the historical event, the flood, and that historical event, the crucifixion. So we have foundation in the Old Testament. We have foundation in the New Testament. And in our days, our foundation is the commencement of the 2,300, the time when Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place, or the end part of the 2,300 years. So we can establish with this complete information the central pillar of the Advent faith, the 2,300 years, and the crucifixion being within the period of the 2,300 years, which is within the period of the 70 weeks, which is 490 years, from the time when the decree that had been recorded in Ezra chapter 7, the decree by Artaxerxes, the commencement of the 490 years or 490 days, from October 16, 457 BC, brothers and sisters, look at we will show to you how God helped us through the timeanddeath.com, and then we convert it to the Bible calendar together with Gregorian calendar. Because the question in answerer number 3, page 9, it says, can you tell us the Hebrew New Year's Day and the days of their sacred feast in terms of our Roman calendar? That question, in reality, had not been answered by B.T. Halter. Because in page 11, I would like to read in page 11, it says, beginning its first month, answerer number 3, page 11, beginning its first month of the year, with the first new moon at or after the vernal equinox, March 2021, it puts the portent day that on which the Passover lamb was to be slain. On April 3. Once for all is seen the utter impossibility of the Roman months having the slightest thing to do with fixing the time of either the Passover or the sheep offering, and thus not the slightest thing to do with reckoning the time of either the crucifixion or the resurrection of Christ. Now, to prove to you, brothers and sisters, that this statement is absolutely right. Now let us go to the internet. 31 AD, Julian calendar. Let us see, 31 AD, Julian calendar. Calendar. You understand calendar? That is timeanddeath.com. Palestine, not Philippines. Israel. Israel. So here the Shepherd's Rod says, brothers and sisters, B.T. Hodge says that once for all is seen the utter impossibility of the Roman months having the slightest thing to do with fixing the time of either the Passover or the sheep offering, and thus not the slightest thing to do with reckoning the time of either the crucifixion or the resurrection of Christ. So, look at April, brothers and sisters. That is 31 AD in timeanddeath.com. So, if April 3 is 14, therefore, April 4 is 15, and April 5 is April 16. But April 5 is Thursday. That is not the day by which Jesus Christ was crucified. So, the Roman months, it utters the impossibility according to the Shepherd's Rod. I would like to read again the statement. Says that once for all is seen the utter impossibility of the Roman month. The Roman months having the slightest thing to do with fixing the time of either the Passover or the sheep offering, and thus not the slightest thing to do with reckoning the time or either the crucifixion or the resurrection of Christ. Now let's go back again to that Julian calendar, because there was no Gregorian calendar in the days of Jesus Christ, only Julian. The Gregorian calendar were in existence 1582 AD by Pope Gregory XIII. So the Roman calendar, on the first advent of Jesus Christ, it is the Julian calendar. Now, Julian calendar, April 16 is Monday. Does Jesus Christ was crucified on Monday? No, brothers and sisters. Now, look at the following the vernal equinox of the the Julian calendar, says that it puts April 14 on April 3. Therefore, 14, 15, 16. And that is Thursday. Does Jesus Christ crucified on Thursday? No. It was Friday. So whether by equinox or whether by the month itself, it utters the impossibility of fixing either the time of crucifixion or resurrection or ascension, or the Roman calendar, brothers and sisters, is fictitious. And the events without the Bible creation calendar, then, brothers and sisters, you cannot locate the exact fulfillment, either history or prophecy, through the Gregorian or through the Julian or through the Gregorian calendar. But the calendar that we are using now is Gregorian. So, it is in absolute importance to have such Bible calendar, brothers and sisters. And through that Bible calendar that was graciously placed in our hands, using only the Bible and the Shepherd's Rod publication, together with the great controversy or spur prophecy, God restored it through the written records of the inspired records. So I would like to summarize again, brothers and sisters, our subject. The only record in the Bible concerning the flood is that Noah entered into the ark on the 2nd month and on the 10th day of the month. So the only record in the Bible is May 10. May 10. But how do we know that May 10 is Friday? Through the shepherd's rod. Right? The Bible is very plain. That is on the 10th day of the 2nd month. Although in the Bible, there is no record May 10. The only record in the Bible is that in Genesis chapter 7, on verse 11 and 12, it says, brothers and sisters, that the rain began to pour out on the 17th day on the 2nd month, May 17. And from the time Noah entered to the ark, there was 7 days. So Bitihotep had been able to recognize the absolute fact that it was May 10 because 17 minus 7 equals 10. But in what way does Bitihotep got a knowledge that it was Friday? So it's very important, brothers and sisters, that we need to study closely. But for sure, the statement in the shepherd's rod must be absolutely perfect. Saying in 2SR 254, our God commanded Noah with his family, beasts, fowls, and creeping things to enter in the ark on preparation day, Friday. So that is our first clue that we have been able to establish the Bible calendar with the records in the Bible as explained by the shepherd's rod. Noah entered into the ark May 10, Friday. The Bible and the shepherd's rod did not say what year. So in this study, we could ascertain clearly what year. But still, the evidences must be found. Bible, writings of Sister White, and the shepherd's rod publications. And our second foundation is in the New Testament, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Great Controversy 327, it says 31 AD. And the shepherd's rod say, track number 3, page 57, that was April 16. And 2SR 254, it says that was Friday. So we have the complete information. April 16, 31 AD, Friday. So through the absolute record of the very year of crucifixion, resurrection, the center of attraction in this study, we can be able to trace backward and then trace forward. In our tracing backward, how could we be able to ascertain clearly that there are 360 days, although it was already recorded in the Bible and the shepherd's rod, that the Bible reckoning is only 12 months a year, 30 days to a month, 360 days every year. Then we count backward with the weekly cycle, then we can count how many years from the crucifixion to the time when the flood came using that divine formula. And using that divine formula, if we can locate that May 10 is Friday, then that computation is absolutely perfect because it was recorded in the Bible. And if we could be able to trace forward to the time when Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place, then that computation is perfect, brothers and sisters, as recorded in the Bible and in the Spirit of prophecy. So we will continue this subject, brothers and sisters, and hoping the good Lord will bless us and would help us. And on our next episode, We'll try our best that we could produce more comprehensive materials to understand this very important subject. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. May the good Lord bless you and have a wonderful evening.